Over the years, we have seen many games go down to the wire and superstars making clutch plays to lead their teams to victory. So out of curiosity, I decided to take some time and look at which teams have been executing well and which teams have not when it counts over the course of this season by looking at clutch time stats, which is defined as any game within the last 5 minutes where the game is within 5 points. After playing around in my bedroom, I found that over the last 2.5 months, the Orlando Magic are 10th in net rating in the clutch, and the Sacramento Kings are the best offensive team in the clutch so far this season, which is higher than the Nets, Nuggets, and Celtics. And if you look a little further, the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis are the 6th worst offensive team in the clutch this season, and similarly, the Blazers are the 4th worst team with a net rating of negative 11.6, despite having Damian Lillard, who is known as one of the clutchest shooters in the NBA. So just by looking at the numbers, having a star doesn't necessarily make a team more efficient down the stretch. Now I know what you're thinking. Clutch time is too nuanced to really extract any true conclusions from it, and I agree. That's why we're not Kendrick Perkins out here. It's always important to look at the film and see if these numbers actually mean something. But before we do so, let me tell you what I've been working on with DraftKings. With numerous trades happening along with countless games in the NBA, now is the time to get in on the action. So that's why I'm teaming up with DraftKings to make watching sports more exciting and give all new customers a winning offer. All you have to do is sign up using my promo code Daniel Lee, put at least $5 on a pregame money line for any basketball game, and you'll receive an additional $150 in bonus bets if your bet hits. Now, if mobile sports betting is not yet available in your state, you can get in on the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy. I personally enjoy this format more because I couldn't keep up with my fantasy basketball team for the whole season. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. New customers use my promo code Daniel Lee and receive $150 if your $5 pregame money line hits. That is my promo code Daniel Lee, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. So if these numbers actually mean something, what are the Kings and Magic doing so well that the Bucks and Blazers aren't? To answer this question, I spent the last few weeks watching a bunch of games that were relatively close in the fourth quarter to see if there was anything in particular that could help answer this question. After watching about 10 to 12 games, here's what I found. And as a disclaimer, I know that clutch time is only within 5 minutes left, but I ended up showing some clips from the entire fourth quarter because it provides a more complete sample size. The first concept is constant dribble penetration with spacing. In a game where three-pointers have been celebrated more than ever, driving into the paint and creating opportunities from there will make offensive sets a lot easier, especially when teams are more tired down the stretch. Let's start with the Orlando Magic, which is probably the most surprising clutch team on this list. For some context, the Magic in November posted an outstanding clutch rating of negative 30.5, but it's not surprising considering that they had a lot of injuries that month, including their two main guards, Gary Harris and Banchero, for a good stretch of November, which means that this number does not represent where they are right now. This team is tall and lengthy, but can't shoot well at all except for Franz Wagner. But the reason they have been playing really well down the stretch is their relentlessness to continue driving and making plays. At first glance, these plays seem like simple pick and rolls or dribble drives, and while that is somewhat true, the Magic have been really good at creating space for their ball handlers to drive into the paint, specifically to get a one-on-one matchup and have them attack. On this inbound play, the Magic have Ross run off a curl into the corner, which gets Murray and Jordan preoccupied, but now that opens up the whole middle of the floor for a one-on-one with Wagner and Bruce Brown, and he gets an easy layup. Now let's rewind this because there's something else I want to show you. So the reason this play works so well is because Ross, who was initially in the paint, brought Murray out, which opened up space for Wagner to cut. Once one person flows out, another person has space to cut in, which helps maintain that spacing. For example, here Anthony and Bol run a pick and roll, and you can see Wagner starting to cut towards the middle of the floor as Bol runs to the dunker spot. While there's three people around the middle, Murray and Jordan are not really sure who they're guarding, and once Wagner catches the ball, this creates mismatches with Jordan and Murray. Once Bol and Anthony clear the floor for Wagner to work one-on-one, he gets a dunk. Another time you can cut is when you want to give the ball handler a one-on-one matchup. So here Ross gives Banchero a screen to get a matchup he likes, and Cole Anthony cuts in from the wing, which pulls Murray away. With Bol Bol moving to Anthony's spot, this gets Porter preoccupied, and now Banchero gets a free lane to the basket with a strong hand. And that's why you don't necessarily need to have 5 shooters on the court to have these open lanes. When you cut from the wing into an open area, you're going to open up more space for the ball handler to drive and force the defenders that's helping on the ball handler to take the main guy in the corner. And continuously having this type of misdirection to keep off-ball defenders preoccupied is so crucial to continue finding open space. Here the Magic are setting up a back cut for Wagner to pay attention to the weak side. Ross and Suggs switch positions, which keeps Hart and Simons preoccupied. Once Hart and Simons turn their head, the pass is already made to Franz and he gets a layup. It's these subtle movements that can keep a defense off balance just enough to get what you're looking for on the offensive end. The Kings, who have the best offensive rating in the league, also use a lot of misdirection, but in different ways since they're not as big as Orlando, but they're definitely quicker. One concept they use this in is through the dribble handoff. Here Sabonis has the ball, and Lyles cuts through Porter, which gets him one step behind Herter, and now that forces Jokic to jump out on him. Because Lyles cuts through, this is essentially an empty side pick and roll with Sabonis in the middle on a one-on-one, and he gets fouled. Here, Barnes runs a dribble handoff with Lyles, which sets up an additional dribble handoff with Metu and Fox with a burst of speed, and he gets fouled. In the last 3 minutes, Fox runs a pick and roll with Rashawn Holmes, and Herter flashes to the wing. Now LeBron is smart enough to call out Pat Bev to take Herter, but the Kings still get a switch with Gabriel on Fox. The reason Herter's cut is so important is because he forces Pat Bev to take him, which forces the switch. Gabriel becomes Fox's prey, and he gets an easy 2. And this looks a lot different from what we see out of teams like the Bucks and Blazers. Even though Giannis is the most dominant player in the paint, teams can load up on him, especially when his personnel is not great out there. There's a lot of standing around as Giannis is driving, which makes the offense really predictable. And to be fair, the Bucks have not had Chris Middleton for the last month or so, which has made scoring a lot more difficult, and a lot of these clips are not with Drew Holiday as well. But even with Holiday, the Bucks are still really inconsistent in terms of getting quick cutting or quick ball movement going. They had some great sets where they had a cut leading to a dribble handoff, or another dribble handoff leading to a wide open 3, but there will be other times where Holiday and Giannis will run pick and roll with everyone else standing around, which still leads to inefficient shots. And that's what you see in Portland as well. With Dame as the point and no one else moving around, teams have been so adept at putting 2 to 3 players around him while he's trying to make a play. Even when doubling Dame, rotations are predictable based on the first pass. And when Nurkic is not the one setting the screen, you're basically playing 4v5 because he's usually sitting on the perimeter even though he doesn't make threes. So what ends up happening is that Dame has to either split his way to the hoop and finish around a big center, or it's a contested 3 off a series of obvious passes, which has made their offense really predictable, and that's why having great players is not enough to solve the entire offense. A lot of what offensive and defensive execution comes down to is who's in sync. I've had some requests asking to do a video about controlling pace. It's an interesting concept that I would definitely explore down the line, but for now, I would think of that phrase being synonymous with being in sync with your offense. Knowing where you're supposed to be on the court, who's going to cut at what time, and who's doing what at each specific juncture prevents one player just holding the ball for too long before something starts happening. And as fans, you might notice that not knowing what to do in the NBA happens more than you think it should. The bottom line is if you hold the ball for too long, any team will have an easy time guarding you. Here, the Nuggets are trying to get Jokic into a dribble handoff or a pick and roll. I think Jokic floated out to the wing because he thought he was getting the ball, but Highland wanted a pick and roll instead. This confusion took off a good 8 to 9 seconds, and now Jokic is left isoing Sabonis with 4 seconds left, and he misses. The Nuggets make the adjustment a few minutes later as Highland runs a pick and roll with Jokic, and he goes fast to the rim and gets fouled. We saw this a lot with the Lakers as well. LeBron is left isoing on the left wing with 5 Kings just surrounding the paint. Westbrook and Beverly tried to cut to create more passing options, but with everything in front of you, and the Kings were ready for any LeBron pass. He's basically forced to take a step back jumper. Here, LeBron wants to switch with Herter, but with Christie going to the corner, Murray can guard 2 players at once, and Barnes stays to help shadow LeBron, and it turns into a shot clock violation. A couple plays later, LeBron calls for a pick with 11 seconds left, and with a switch, now there's only 6 seconds left, which allows for Murray to start doubling. Westbrook gets the pass, and he misses the 3. Which is a lot different from what the Kings run here. The Kings run a pick and roll to get Barnes to switch with 13 seconds left, and have an off-ball screen decoy to distract Toscano-Anderson and Westbrook, so now the paint is more open. Also, by catching the ball with 10 seconds left, Barnes has a lot more time to take advantage of the mismatch, and he gets an and 1. Even after a made basket, the Kings try to run up the pace to get the matchups they want. For instance, here Fox takes the ball up, and now Michael Porter is on him. I love that he makes sure Najee is not looking, so now this baseline drive is completely wide open, and he gets a layup out of this. Whether or not these numbers really mean something is still to be determined. However, the main point of this video is that the Kings and Magic are creating great shots by getting their players one-on-one matchups in space, and that's why these two teams have been very solid this season. So the next time you watch a close basketball game, pay attention to how teams are scoring down the stretch. You might notice that a lot of the times, a lot of great shots come from how much space you can create for yourself down the stretch. Just for shits and giggles, if you want to watch two teams be terrible at executing, go back and watch the Clippers-Bucks game down the stretch, especially the Clippers. Every single possession was Paul George or Kawhi Leonard trying to take contested mid-range or 3-point shots, and it wasn't a surprise that they could not score 1 point in the last 3+ minutes. On the other hand, if you want to watch two teams execute well down the stretch, I would go back and watch Toronto and Boston in Game 6 in the bubble. The amount of drives and kicks, plays designed to get mismatches near the basket was outstanding, considering that these two teams were also great on defense as well. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'm trying really hard to get at least one video a week. Hope you're not feeling too single this week.